there, welcome. It's Mary Sheila, and it is springtime in Sonoma County where I live, and I am on the side of the road in the woods looking at beautiful stinging nettle, which is an amazing medicinal plant that grows wild many places all over the world, and it is one of the most nutrient dense green wild crafted herbs that you can find out there. And it grows in colder areas, it grows low to the ground, and yes, it really does sting you, so that's why I have my gloves on. When I was in my earlier 20s, I used to harvest them without my gloves, but I tend to wear gloves now because they do sting for maybe up to a couple hours or even up to 24 hours. But they are extremely potent medicine. They are high in so many minerals, iron and chromium and phosphorus and a whole bunch more. They're also really rich in amino acid profile, especially when they're fresh. And they have some B vitamins. They're an amazing regulator of so many of our tissues, all the way from the urinary and kidneys to the circulatory system to really building blood because they're so nutrient dense. And because they're wild, we're going to be getting, wherever they're harvested, the wildness of the plants around us. It's funny, I was first introduced to nettle when I was a kid, and our family was staying up in the mountains in Lake Arrowhead up down in Southern California, and we were on a hike, and I remember my sister grabbed a plant to pull her up, and it was stinging nettles. So that's where we first learned about stinging nettles. Another name for this beautiful plant is called the pay attention plant. So I can grab the nettles with my fingers if I'm paying attention and I'm not going to get stung. But if I brush up against it, I will get stung. But for the purposes of this demo, I am going to wear my gloves. And I'm going to harvest some and just show you how to harvest. In the early spring, before they have seeds and flowers, is a great time to harvest it. And I always like to just come in here and grab so that there's going to be a next offshoot of plants coming in, and I just need the tips. And I'll put the tips into my basket or my bag or grocery bag and just keep kind of moving along and grabbing the tips. Now, once I have these tips, I can make tea with it, which I'll show you, or I could steam them and cook them down a little bit and add them to a soup, or maybe put them into a pesto. I could make a nettle pesto. Ooh, that sounds good. And what is going to happen when I do this in the springtime is it's just going to help kind of clean out the muck of, of winter, of the extra storage we might have, of the cold. The other thing about the fact that this is such an incredible super green is because it's so mineral dense and so incredibly nutrient dense, it's very alkalizing to the body. And that makes it also very lung protective. And so, even when we're dealing with viruses or flu, they can thrive more in a more acidic environment, and they kind of stick on to parts of the cell that are maybe more acidic. So this is going to be protection to make things more alkaline on a cellular level. So they're very potent medicine. And again, they're wild, and you can wild craft them and find them near you. You want to find them in a watery source. You can also order them online, which is totally fine if you're not a wild crafter, which I completely get. But these beauties, again, you can cook with them, and then you can even juice them, or you can make tea. That's the one thing I love to do, where I'll just boil a quart of water, and then I'll pour that quart over my nettles, usually in a wide mouth mason jar, and just let that sit overnight, and the next day my water will be bright green. And that bright green water I'll just drink throughout the day. I don't necessarily need to do that all year long, but I can certainly do it, during the springtime. And then if I pick enough of them, which I tend to try to pick enough to hold me over for a while, I will dry them. And then when I make a broth or a stock, I'll throw some dried nettles. Or if I want to make a tea a couple months from now, I'll throw some dried nettles in there. And the amazing thing about these beautiful plants is the seeds are used medicinally, the roots are used medicinally, and also the stems are also used as a fiber, which I have not done that before, but I'm sure there's some processing that goes on because of the sting of the stinging nettles. So anyways, I love these plants. They are so incredibly nutritious. Yes, you can see their little stingers on there. They're very, they have an acid that will just go into you and make you sting. And I'll tell you another little story. When I was in my 20s, I broke my left wrist and I had a cast on my arm. And what I did, which I learned at the time was very traditional, when women in traditional cultures will have arthritis, they'll actually slap the nettles on their arthritic joints, and that will get the blood flow and the circulation going. So I didn't do it a ton, but I did do it a few times, and I had a cast on. So I said, well, what if I do my other wrist, because maybe that'll get the blood flowing in both of my wrists, and what if I did my ankles, which is very synergistic. I know that was a good thing to do. It wasn't like it was fun, but you know, it was helpful. Now that I'm here at this nettle patch, I noticed another spring herb that's really good for the lymphatic system and to keep things moving. So we've got this blood builder of nettles, and we also have these cleavers. And I just want to say, you know, when you're out wildcrafting, you always want to know and make sure you're positive on your identification. So make sure you are paying attention to that. But the other thing, actually, nettles are really even safe for pregnancy and for breastfeeding. So it's a really safe, what I would call a tonic herb, meaning something you can take pretty regularly. I mean, it's always good to mix your herbs up. And sometimes if you don't want them and you don't crave them, then that's a good sign that it's time to move on and find something else. But what I did notice is that there's these cleavers, and I don't need I do not need any gloves for these. And cleavers are a beautiful lymphatic herb that really helps to move the lymph. And you know they're cleavers when they stick to you just like that. They're like little, kind of like little hitchhikers. They're kind of sticky. You can feel the stickiness. And they're amazing for the lymphatic system. So you can also make a beautiful cleavers tea with these guys. Again, you could just boil some water, pour it over the cleaver, and drink some tea. And you can absolutely mix the two together if you happen to find them. But you'll see, again, just how sticky they are. They're very sticky. They don't feel sticky, but you can feel they're not sticky, like my hands aren't sticky, but they just have that ability to stick. So cleavers, excellent lymphatic movers, also really wonderful to make a tea with. Okay, so I am back from my nettle harvest. It's into the evening, and I'm gonna make myself a quart of tea with my fresh nettles. So I've got all these nettles, and I've also got my tongs, which is gonna make it much easier. So here's all my nettles. I've got a whole basket full. What I will end up doing is I will end up laying these out on a big basket that I have, or if I had a tray, and putting them by the wood stove. I could also just go ahead and put them right in the freezer if you don't have a lot of space to store things, if you happen to be harvesting them. And you know, I was out at the store today and saw nettle supplements. It's just such a great blood builder, immune protective, lung support herb, and so beautiful. And it's the pay attention plant. So you know, when you harvest it and you go through all the trouble, it's just medicine. So I have my quart-sized mason jar. I learned long ago to make sure you don't add too much heat to the mason jar. If you just put something metal, that will absorb a lot of the heat, so if you're ever making tea. But you know, you can also use a teapot. I do have a teapot right here, which I could easily use, but I'm just gonna do my mason jar method. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna throw in the tips. So here's one tip. Here's two tips. I think I'm gonna throw three because it's just so fresh and beautiful. I'm gonna throw my knife in there just to absorb some of the heat from my hot water. And I just boiled a pot of water, and I'm just gonna pour it in there. And the beautiful thing is, this will sit. So I learned from my friend Ruth, who's an herbalist, one of the things I learned from her was that, you know, nettles are a tonic. And so whenever you have a tonic herb, it means that the herb is very safe. It's always a good idea to mix things up that we're doing. It's just like sometimes we get bored with eating the exact same thing all the time. And I think it's the same thing with herbs. But in this family of tonic herbs, it means that they are very safe and they have so many nutrients that the body needs. And because they come to us in a liquid form as a tea, they bathe our tissues. And they bathe our tissues with the nutrients. So this, you can already see, well, I don't know if you can see, but you can already see it's starting to change color. It's gonna get a really nice, vibrant green, and that's what I'm gonna drink. But because it's a tonic herb, and I really wanna pull as much as I can from this, I am actually going to leave it overnight and then drink it tomorrow. So it's gonna get a full 8-hour infusion. And that's one of the things that I learned from her, is just to really get a good amount of medicine into the water to drink the next day. And then I can warm this up the next day. I could just drink it throughout the day. If I have a water bottle, maybe not my metal, you know, maybe a water bottle that's real easy to clean, I can add it to my water. I could, you know, just make sure I drink it throughout the day and get all of those kidney, adrenal, nutrient-rich, blood builder nutrients. And yeah, I mean, it's just such a medicine, such a superfood, these nettles. And it's just that reminder, you know, like wherever you are, go on a walk and see. You might not have them, but I told one of my friends today that I went and harvested nettles, and she said that she has them all over her backyard and she doesn't know what to do with them. So they might be there. You just have to look for them. Okay, so there's my nettles, and we will see what they look like tomorrow as tea. I'm also really excited to make some nettle pesto, right? So if you followed me before, you know that I like to say you can make pesto with anything. It does not have to just be basil. Basil is a very warming herb, and it's also available in the summertime. Cilantro is available now, more in the springtime. It's coming up and into the earlier summer before it bolts. And right now you might have kale or any other greens in your garden. So you can make a pesto with any greens or a whole mixture, throw in a bunch of spices and herbs. It does not have to just be basil. So I'm going to just begin the process of making nettle pesto. So again, I'm using my tongs so I don't get stung. I have water boiling right here, and I'm just gonna add it in here, and I'm really only gonna add it for about 90 seconds. And then I'm gonna pour it into, or put it back into a cold water bath. So I've got my boiling water here. Might as well just do a little bit more, because what I'm thinking too, if I make this beautiful nettle pesto, you know, the olive oil is such a great preservative, and I can also freeze some if I wanted to. So I'm really gonna just do it for about 90 seconds. Yes, I still wear a watch. I am old school like that. It's one way that kind of gets me not as attached to my phone, even though I think my husband and my family would say that I'm attached to my phone. But it's one less way. I don't have to be looking at my phone for the time. So I'm gonna do about 90 seconds. The reason I have to do that is because that is going to get rid of the sting, right? I don't want to make stinging nettle pesto and have somebody have stingers in their mouth. That would be very bad. So right here I have ice water. So I have an ice bath. This is how you just turn the heat off, and you can actually do this with any pesto that you're making ahead of time, and it helps to keep it really nice and vibrant green. So you basically, or any vegetables, you just do, sometimes you do it for a minute, sometimes you do it for 30 seconds, and then you throw it in an ice bath. It stops the cooking and it keeps it really vibrant. So like if you're gonna make a soup for somebody, you know, and you were trying to do things ahead of time, you could get all your vegetables done like this. You could just throw them in the hot water bath and then throw them in the cold water bath, stop their cooking, get them a little pre-cooked, and there you have it. So I'm just about at 90 seconds, and I'm kind of sticking to the 90-second rule because I just want to make sure there's no stingers still alive. Which they're probably all gone now, but you know. And I'm just gonna pull all this out. Look at that, I can pull it out in one chunk. And I'm just gonna throw it into my water bath. And then the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain this, and I'm really gonna actually try to get as much water out of these nettles as I can. So I took my nettles out of the water and I put it in a strainer. And then I went through and, you know, they're pretty woody. I mean, not too bad, but I'm just taking off all the stems and just gonna focus on the leaves. It's just gonna taste better, have a better texture. You could probably go either way, but that's just the way I'm gonna roll it tonight. Okay, so I'm just doing the last two. I already did a bunch, but I'm just coming through and just taking the stems and separating the leaves. And this is how you would do it kind of with any pesto. Like if you were making a cilantro pesto, you actually would not have to separate the stems, but when you do a basil pesto or a parsley, you do want to take the stems off because they're kind of bitter. Now there's a lot of water in here, so what I'm going to do now is I've got a couple paper towels, and I'm just going to put all these greens in here, and I'm just going to fold them up and kind of squeeze them. Oh, I probably should have squeezed them beforehand, but whatever. You get to see all my mistakes. It's a blooper. It's a blooper kind of a moment. But I'm just gonna squeeze as much as I can out of the water. Now I've got my pesto, or my nettles, and look at it, it's like such a small amount. So yeah, could I have done more? Yes, but did I? No. So it's all good. Just dump my water, and I'm gonna add my pesto, my nettles, and yes, I will make more next time. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of walnuts. So, you know, sometimes you use pine nuts. I love to use pumpkin seeds, but this is what I got on hand. So I am going to do about a half a cup-ish, maybe 3/4. I'm gonna do a pinch of salt, and I'm gonna do a little bit of lemon. You can totally add cheese, that would be really good, but I'm not going to, because I might, well, I'm not gonna freeze this, I'm not making that much. And then I just filled up my beautiful fresh, local, organic olive oil that's like, smells really grassy and strong, so I'm gonna use that. Because there's still water in the pesto, you know, it's not gonna stay for that long unless I froze it, but it's always good to eat things fresh when you make them. And then I'm just going to blend it all. And this is just gonna be a really nutrient-dense, beautiful pesto. I can mix it with like a little yogurt if I wanted to make kind of a green sauce. Oh my gosh, it's even brighter green now. That is so beautiful. Look at that. This is very exciting. Okay, I'm gonna taste it, and since we're in like coronavirus times, I'm not going to, I'm gonna taste it with full hygiene as if I was gonna feed you this, which I wish I could, but I can't. So, but I do have a family here, so I'm gonna, oh yeah. It's really good. I might add a little more, well, actually I'm gonna keep it just like it is. It tastes so good. The nettles are so nutrient dense. It has a really like nutty flavor that's probably being helped by the walnuts, but it's a beautiful pesto. So this week I'll have this pesto. I have a soup in the fridge. I'll put a gallop on my soup. If I make any salad dressings, I'll put a gallop in my salad dressing, and I did forget to put garlic, but that would be an extra. I probably will once I say goodbye to you. But if I'm gonna make a salad dressing, I'll add it. If I'm going to make any dips or spreads or anything, or cook a root vegetable, I can smear it on top. This is gonna be good for everything. It's so nutrient dense. It's totally springtime from the elements, from the outside, coming into my body. And so it's so healing and so nourishing, and it's actually really good for the lungs. It's very alkalizing to the body. One of the things I was reading recently about the coronavirus was that these parts of the cells get really acidic when things can go wrong if somebody has it. And so this is alkaline. This is a picture of alkaline. This, when you see green, you know it's alkaline. We need acid. Acids are our proteins. It's very grounding, and our, some of our starches, but we also need the greens. And so this is a really good concentrated way to get it. So if you don't have access, you can actually purchase nettle products like tinctures or vinegars or supplements, or maybe somebody else harvested and you can get it dry from them. But it's a wonderful thing, and I hope you can find some in your neck of the woods and let me know how that goes. And we'll go from there. We're learning as we go, and we're rediscovering the medicine from the earth that is really the medicine that we need right now more than ever. Well, thanks for joining me while I wildcrafted some spring herbs. I've got my stinging nettle, pay attention plant. Remember, you can, as long as you're paying attention, it's not going to sting you. And my beautiful cleavers that are great lymphatic movers. Excellent together in a tea, as a pesto. Put into the greens into your soup. As long as you cook them, you'll break it down. But thank you for joining me on my wildcrafting session. I hope you have a beautiful day, and please subscribe to my channel, sign up for notifications, leave a comment if you find some nettles or cleavers in your backyard. Here's to your health.